The dog's behavior is just a manifestation of the human's inner landscape, right? So it's asking for your higher self to come in, to be called in, to answer those questions that you're feeling like that disconnection with, right? The disconnection is the not listening. And that's how we've been programmed, is to not listen to our higher selves, to not listen to what is within. Because we know this is our innate inner intelligence. And it's something that dogs, they're hardwired. It's by default. That's just who they are. It's what they are. They can't be anything different.
Welcome to the Fallen Frequency Podcast. I'm your host, Adam Fallon, your guide through the world of music, art, and living life with a vibrational twist. Welcome to today's episode. I am very thrilled to introduce Sasha Armstrong, a trailblazer committed to revolutionizing the dog industry with her compassionate, conscious, and species-appropriate education. Sasha's journey began early, witnessing the neglect and misunderstanding dogs often endure, even among well-meaning individuals. Over the past 25 years, she has guided clients to transcend conventional dog training, helping them shift their behavior, alter their essence, and channel alpha leader energy to deeply connect with their canine companions. Sasha's expertise has been featured in Reader's Digest, USA Today, and on many podcasts and television shows. She currently lives on a spacious farm in Northwest Illinois with her 6 dogs and 6 horses. In this episode, we cover fun and profound topics such as interspecies communication and what that means for our own reflection as humans. We explore the power we have to heal ourselves and live a life of freedom and discuss a balanced approach to connecting with nature and animals. We delve into truly coming into resonance with nature using the intellect of the heart and what that means for us in practical application. Sasha challenges the old paradigm of dog training, advocating for a much more holistic and sustainable way of coexisting and co-creating with our canine companions. It's a really nice full circle moment because I was first connected through one of my dear friends, Sevi Mangrum, who is an absolutely incredible coach, human, and holistic health practitioner. And when he introduced Sasha and I immediately bonded with her over Anna Breitenbach's work on interspecies communication and understanding of the wisdom of animals and native and indigenous wisdom. And so much of the things just clicked to the point where I really had to share her on my podcast because I feel like you guys will really resonate with what she has to share. And it really is a deeply unique approach. And I'm excited for you guys to discover how she enriches the life of both dogs and humans. And I will see you on the other side. So, welcoming my dear friend, Sasha Armstrong, to my podcast. It's been a long time coming. She is an incredible animal intuitive, dog shaman, as some people call her, and just an incredible human being and woman that I'm so thankful to have gotten to meet and spend time with. And yeah, I'm excited to see where this conversation goes. So, maybe just getting right into it. Could you give a little bit of a background on how you got into this journey of working with animals and maybe even explain a little bit to the people of what it is that you do?
Sure. So I have been in this lifetime connecting with humans and their animals, specifically dogs, for 25 years. So I've been doing this since I was a young teenager professionally. And it literally just has always felt and been a knowing that I was put on this earth in this dimension at this time to really heal the relationship between our dogs and and they're humans, and to really transform the way that we coexist in such a way that elevates the human potential and the human's capacity for greatness, while allowing our dogs to be the magnificence that they are.
Absolutely.
Right? And they really are just that by their very nature, just their presence, just their way of being. And it has served as a model and an example of how we really deep in our inner soul's knowing want to be and can be. And they're that reflection and that mirror always there showing us the way. And it's just, now is the time where we have to learn how to listen.
Yeah.
So that we can step into that greatness and, really the optimal life experience that I think most humans really have a desire to have. So, I've never worked for anybody in my entire life. I've always, as I say, I've always worked for the dogs. And it, through the years, starting out as a very young child doing this, it was so evident and clear to me. I remember being a very young child and, of course, a highly, highly sensitive child, and experiencing really what it was like to be behind the dog's eyes and be in their being, and to see and feel and touch and smell and experience the world and their surroundings through them. And it wasn't about my humanized version of that or my humanized experience. It was solely coming from them. And they showed me and taught me how it was that I could bridge the worlds, right? In order to be able, because the only way to give them the greatest optimized life experience, for them to live their birthright and their intrinsic nature, is for the humans, to step up and create that for them. Because at the end of the day, our dogs are, for better or for worse, beholden to us.
Yeah.
They don't have a choice. And that was what, from such a young child, it burdened it took such a toll, a deep toll on my soul, experiencing what it was like for them to be subjected to the disconnection of humanity.
Yeah, one that just goes to show where we are at a conscious level right now too. I feel like a lot of people are waking up to, there's so many pieces that you said that really bring me back to the harmony in nature and coming back to the realization that we are part of nature, and that many times we can play ourselves into this role of thinking that we have risen above the levels of nature, or that's more of an archaic way of thinking. But funny enough, that right-brained thinking that you so beautifully and eloquently spoke about, really, I feel like our connection to nature was a natural thing throughout so much of our species as a human, where we were probably always interfacing, or not even probably, we were definitely always interfacing with these powers and forces of nature beyond our own capacity to understand. I think when we try to cut everything into these all these separate pieces in our left brain mentality, but it just goes back to, just coming back to that centeredness of what nature really is and what we really are. And that disconnection is, in my opinion, why we're so sick now and why there's so much disease and mental illness and all of the different things. But thank you for sharing that, though. That's really powerful that you were able to take that call, that inner call, just from the get-go of being in an early age and being able to continue on that through line.
Yeah, it hasn't been easy, I will tell you that. And I was asked this question recently of, through your life process, what were the pinnacle points in which you had that fork in the road where you could go this way or that way? And they were there. There were these intersections where I was either going to be a professional Olympic equestrian or a professional dancer, or I had all these scholarships to fine arts schools just based off of my portfolio, not my grades. Let's be clear, Sasha never went to school. It was never on the agenda, ever, even when I was a little itty bitty.
Good, you had less to unlearn.
It was like, wait, why would I learn something in this institution? The learning is in nature.
Right.
And so at every fork in the road where I was going to choose, okay, am I going to be in a environment as a professional equestrian that's only damaging and abusing and dishonoring the bond between horses and humans, and which is a whole other rabbit hole that we could go down. But
absolutely.
No, it was like, no, going the wolves. It was always the wolves.
Yeah.
So I studied, I went deep into nature, and all of my learning, I always say I'm not, through all of my work, I am just the messenger. I'm the conduit.
Right.
This is not an opinion. It's not my truth. It is the truth.
Yeah.
Nature is the truth.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just here translating the language, and also not just for the canine, but for the human, because again, this actually has nothing to do with dogs.
Yeah.
It has everything to do with human consciousness and the healing of our wounds.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you mentioned something about listening that I found really fascinating, because I find that a lot of the time there's this bi-directional pathway when we're listening, where a lot of the time people are just so outwardly focused in this modern age of technology and all the different things that we're surrounded by, that we're creating this projection onto nature, animals, all of the people around us, and we're not actually allowing that natural reciprocity of the feedback and the mirror-like aspect of animals. And I know that throughout your work that's a huge part of actually listening and using the intellect of the heart. And could you speak a little bit more about that and just what that means to you?
Yeah, I would love to. Right. And there's so much that goes into this way in which we are not present in the listening. Right. And it's not just this, our busy lives, our disconnection from what's important, from our feelings, from our, our internal landscape. Right. It shows up in ways in which we project onto specifically our dogs, where it's literally they have become our emotional crutch. And with that, you hear statements all the time of, my dog loves me, my dog feels this, my dog is this, my dog, feels this way about me. And literally, I mean, it's such a, it's so unfair to them to project these, assuming that our dogs are feeling and thinking and sharing the same experience that we are. I mean, literally, it would be like me. I mean, we have a beautiful connection and relationship, but it would be that I assume, without consulting with you or communicating to you about your feelings, it would be me assuming that you feel exactly the same way about me that I feel about you.
Yeah. And
that's not fair.
Right.
And so yet another way in which dogs become the victim of these assumptions and expectations. And through that, because we're neglecting to face our own shadow and emotionally regulate ourselves, we end up putting that responsibility onto the dog. And then we wonder why our dogs are suffering to the extent that they are. And it shows up in all of the physical behavioral manifestations that people are, they're struggling hardcore. They see that their dog is not happy. They see that there's a disconnect and there's dysfunction. Yet it's so outwardly, right? Because we're neglecting to listen to ourselves and really be with ourselves and be present to healing ourselves and loving ourselves.
Yeah.
Right? That taking that accountability and responsibility, because we're not doing that, it gets thwarted onto our dogs, and they are the victims.
Yeah.
They become the victims of the human condition.
Yeah. Well, and one of the things that came to my head is it reminds me of the top-down kind of suffering that humanity is going through with, the top 1% controlling all the different things. So then we kind of become the slaves to whatever they want, to create a system for whatever they're creating that they think is the best thing for the world. And then we're becoming a manifestation of that. But then we feel that pressure. So then we don't know how to deal with it. And we think that it's like, in our president or something like that, or it's like some thing that's going to save us. But then it also goes through that, and the through line goes right into all the beings below us, whether they're our children or our pets or things like that. And I find that a lot of them are left with this responsibility where it's like the wisdom of nature blows my mind, because I feel like a dog or an animal, from what I've heard and looked into the research, it's like they actually will take on the ailments of their owners to try and harmonize that for their owner. And it really shows the wisdom of nature. Like a lot of the time, I notice with myself too, I've learned so much when it comes to disease and health and the holistic mindset, and realizing that when we're sick or we have a disease process or something like that, many times the average person is like, we got to fight this thing. We got to face it straight on, and we got to like shoot it out and kill it, cut it out, all the things. And really, it's actually nature's way of saying, hey, I'm going to actually harmonize your body through this process that's going to seem really scary. But on the other side of it, we're going to create harmony with nature. And so, can I do that? And then most people are like, no, absolutely not. Cut it out. Let's just cut out my organ. It's just, but it goes back to the wisdom of nature of like, these animals are really just, they're so patient. Like, it blows my mind, literally, how patient they are. It's like, we get so riled up and like want to just like react.
Yeah.
And it's like, maybe every now and then an animal will do that, but it's like because they've been cornered to the last straw. And
precisely. Right. That's their last resort as a defense mechanism.
Yeah.
Because it is the most risky.
Yeah.
It can easily cost them their life by being in a reactive fight or flight state.
Yeah.
Your chances of dying, or the pack dying, or not surviving are very high when you're in that state. And that is exactly where humans are. And that is one of the many through lines of the traditional dog training industry.
Yeah.
Right? It's, I want it now. They don't realize that, they've created this issue through many different angles, right? Many different ways. Here's the issue. Well, instead of getting to the root, right, we want to cut it out. We want to kill it. We want to get that quick fix. We want that magic pill. We want it now.
Yeah.
We're going to control it. And this wraps all the way back to the listening. Right? So it's like when we actually can listen to our soul's guidance, and that, this is a technique that I always really encourage my clients to do, is when you're experiencing something, to notice this, like with yourself first, and with your dog secondly, because always the dog's behavior is just a manifestation of the human's inner landscape, right? So it's asking for your higher self to come in, to be called in, to answer those questions that you're feeling like that disconnection with, right? The disconnection is the not listening. And that's how we've been programmed, is to not listen to our higher selves, to not listen to what is within. Because we know this is our innate inner intelligence. And it's something that dogs, they're hardwired.
Right.
It's by default. That's just who they are. It's what they are. They can't be anything different.
Yeah.
And that's why almost 60% of households globally have dogs.
Wow. That's a huge number.
It's massive. It's not a mystery.
Yeah.
It's because of that intelligence within them. And this has been going for 30,000 years, you see. This is a relationship and a partnership, not a dictatorship.
Yeah.
Okay, let's keep this at the forefront, right?
100%.
And guess who domesticated humanity?
That's
Canis lupus.
Yeah, right.
Okay, it was the wolves that domesticated humanity and not the other way around.
Right. Damn.
So we need to start showing our reverence.
I love that.
Bowing to them and committing to providing. Because we say that we love them so much, we have to start walking our talk.
Yeah.
As dog parents. You know, and that's another thing. And even like you bring up such an interesting topic that I really would love to hone in on is even somebody like yourself who is so deeply connected to all the worlds and the dimensions, and your sensitivity and understanding of nature and all of its beings is more than most people I know, which says a lot. And even then we get caught up in using words like pet.
Right.
Or dog owner. So it's very important that we mind our words and we use mindfulness around the way that we speak of them. This is how we honor them, because the words that we use and the way that we speak is what we create.
It is. It's the most powerful vibration. It's what takes all of the spiritual down to the mental, emotional, into the physical. So
yes.
It's like, that's the powerful stuff right there.
It is.
Well, and you made me think of two things. One is that I found from a lot of the stuff that I've been learning, especially through Ibrahim Karim's work and biogeometry, of just this natural right brain perception that was in our humanity for a long time. And then over time, it got more and more left brain dominant. And we're actually now in this beautiful period where, as chaotic as it is, we're actually now needing more of that right brain. So now we're actually slowly traveling to the right brain perception again. But I've noticed that, for instance, like a dog really has that amazing natural ability of they're seeing the energy fields around it. And they can see when things are actually, you know, intense or something that you should avoid or be wary of, or something that you want to go closer towards, and goes right back to that reflection thing. But I just find it so fascinating that a lot of the time people think that this extrasensory perception, as a lot of people call it, is this like spiritual thing that only spiritual people know, but actually all of the people use it for survival, because it's actually the way that we truly survive in harmony. So it just blows my mind. Such a brilliant
point. Right. And what's so interesting about that is dogs are functioning that way. It's something that we haven't been able to strip out of them, as much as we have tried to dumb down this magnificent, majestic grandmaster teacher that, you know, we are so privileged to, you know, to coexist with. We have tried so many ways to dumb them down, right? And to make them into something that they're not. You know, I hear this constantly. Dogs don't need alphas. Okay. You know, again, this is not my opinion. This is nature at its finest. You know, don't ask me. I'm just
people get so triggered by the name alpha. Even it's funny.
Right, and understandably so. But to say, you know, those are two different conversations. We need to bring light and authenticity to what a true alpha female and alpha male are within their divine presence, right? Because this is an archetypal figure and a presence that exists throughout nature and in societies and humanity. So that's something that is a whole other conversation. And then, we have to talk about the brutality of how that term has been abused through the wounding of the masculine.
Absolutely.
Right. So that's a whole other other rabbit hole.
Yeah.
But
which I'm here for,
yeah.
All the rabbit holes.
I love rabbit holes. Yeah, I have to be careful I don't go too deep down the spiral. But yeah, so it is just so interesting how on that idea of morphing our dogs into something that they're not, right?
Yeah.
And what is it that humans get out of steering them away or trying to minimize them for what? For our control, for something that we get to, what does our ego get out of really demonizing?
Yeah.
And that's what's happening,
Well, it even makes me think of just how people, I think, because their ego is so attached to the outcome of what they've been programmed to believe is
Correct.
true, that to actually wake up to the fact that this is the real truth is really painful. And I get it. I have my compassion goes to those people, but it's always going to be the better way, even if you have to go through that pain and that initiation and that dark night of the soul to then realize what's really true around you. I think it's just going to be so much more rewarding. And it's but it's not easy.
It's not easy. It's not for the faint of heart.
No.
Yeah.
To listen to your actual heart and soul's calling, and really goes back to the wisdom of nature. And it's we all in divine right order have these natural roles that we play that truly can be harmonizing the environment, and the environment can be harmonizing us. But when we are in that, I'd say, almost scarcity mentality of that, we just have, because it's not like I'm ignorant of the craziness in the world, and there is this tumultuousness that is happening that we need to be aware of, but at the same time we have to shine our light so that we can really bring us back into the right relation with reciprocity, I feel like. And
yeah,
I know you've already mentioned it a little bit, but I would love for you to talk about just the way in which you work with dogs being their own autonomous beings and how that works. So I noticed we had a fun conversation earlier about this beautiful Instagram post, and some of the people that were very thrown off and misunderstanding what it was that, at least in my opinion, that what she was sharing about the actual understanding of how we work with our dogs, rather than punishing and making them obey all of our commands all the time. And in that kind of old paradigm that's also very similar to humanity, coming back to how they're their own autonomous beings that we actually have to ask permission and actually work with, because that's what we signed up for when we get an animal in our lives.
Yeah. And so much of that, this is also interconnected, right? So the idea of, the listening and being able to really take charge of our own way in which we show up, and that awareness of how we engage. And I really think it's a lot of just this showing up and having that awareness, because how people show up with their dogs is exactly how they show up in all relations and in every aspect of their life.
It's a hard pill to swallow.
It is. And it's so illuminating. And when, my clients really, sometimes it is about digging deep and really pulling back the layers of the onion and really getting into the core of the matter. Sometimes it's just these aha, immediate, massive downloads, aha moments where people are just like, whoa, and I am going to change this right now. And sometimes it's more of an unfolding of a process. But, ultimately it is this idea that just as you and I are in a relationship, I don't own you. You don't own me. Right. You are an autonomous, independent being.
Yeah.
And this was a very, people have this idea that the dog to master concept is not old.
Yeah.
It's somewhat new. Right? When we go back to the origin of this partnership.
Makes sense with the right brain kind of mentality too.
Exactly. This was almost a paying of homage from the humans to the canines of, you are almost like a spiritual deity, like the teacher, the all-knowing, the one that is the leader and the guide and full of lessons and teachings that the humans have to learn from in order to survive. And in a very basic way, but also not so basic, right?
Totally.
Because it's not just about survival. It's about the spirituality of it, the divinity of it. And that is this partnership. So at one point, we got to this place where we became more and more disconnected from source. And the almost like turnaround, or the way in which our dogs had to be as I said earlier, the victims of this disconnection from self and from source, we then became, and it now shows up in two very dramatic, extreme dynamics within the human to canine relationship, which is either this, I have to control this animal and make it do what I want and forget its autonomy and its independence. This animal is here to serve me. I literally have people posting on my Instagram that dogs are our servants. This is what a lot of these people, this is like dark.
It is dark.
It's so wounded, and it's
goes
really
back
disturbing.
To the sickness of our whole society, of like why we're looking for like the medical people to fix us, like when it comes to chronic disease and all the different things. It's like nature is like somehow we're just meant to just like use all its resources, and that's why we're here. And there's no soul, there's no God. It's just, it's all completely just, dead clockwork mechanism.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what humans are attempting to turn their dogs into.
Yeah. Might as well just get a robot.
Well, but that's what we're making. Robotic dogs are on their way. And also that it brings up a whole other really interesting topic of breeding, the way that we breed dogs, which is very much so now. One of the most popular, if not the most popular breeding of dogs is the doodles.
Yeah.
And, I've met a lot of cool doodles, so I'm not here to speak bad of them in any way, shape, or form. However, I will say that the way that humans have bred them is not because they want a dog. It's because they want a teddy bear.
Yeah.
And what does a teddy bear represent to a child, to a wounded, sad child?
Yeah,
love, emotion, a shoulder to cry on.
Yeah.
A crutch, a solution, a blanket.
Yeah. To fill an empty hole inside themselves.
Correct. So that's not all negative, and I think it's important to share on that dogs and humans at this point in time, and I think this has been the case for quite a while, is that we have something to offer them, but not nearly the amount of gifts and services
Yeah.
and just teachings and amazingness that they have to offer to us.
Yeah.
And so it's really, our job. Because of how much it becomes our job and should be our mission because of how much we love them.
Ugh.
To
Yeah.
step up and start to balance that scale. So as we have our emotional needs, and we know the dogs, just by being in their mere presence, regulates our nervous system. We don't have to touch them, look at them, talk to them, just by being near a dog.
Yeah.
Children that can't read, and they have these tutors and parents that are hovering over them, read, and the kid's like,
Yeah.
then you put a dog in front of them, it comes like fully self-expressed. That's what these animals do for us.
Yeah.
So now is the time that we need to start stepping up in honor and reverence and value and respect. Right? To understanding them. How can we give back? And that actually, kind of circulates back to that, as I was saying, those two extremes that play out. So we have the really dark, dysfunctional, controlling, damaging, abusive way in which that taking away their autonomy, right, and honoring them as a species, we see what that creates.
Yeah.
But then with this idea of the dog as an emotional blanket, and a crutch and a shoulder to cry on and just dump our woundedness instead of taking care of ourselves, this also creates a very unhealthy, stressful, and anxiety-provoking existence for our dogs, as then it becomes a codependent dynamic.
Yeah. No, well, I have a good question that just came to my mind that reminds me, just because I feel like I have this theory that I've developed a little bit about my own dog that I had for 17 years. Rest in peace, Sunny. She such a deep teacher for my family. I feel like she was an angel that came down from heaven to bring our family back to a union, because there was a lot of turmoil going on. And I almost feel like there was this soul contract that she had with us that maybe I feel like I may have even known her lifetimes, because we had a very deep bond. I mean, she would be like, when I would come back, when I was starting to live in New York, she would be so upset for the first 30 minutes that I came home, and then kind of like tough love, and then slowly like work her way over and just give me like a little kiss on the cheek. It was so cute. Just like sneak it. It was so cute. But I don't know if you've gone into this, but do you think that there's a possibility that some of these animals like have some type of soul contract with their humans and are there to actually learn through that as well as we are?
We're karmic family. I mean, soul, absolutely 1,000,000%.
Yeah.
And I have seen that show up in so many different relationships and dynamics over my career, my 25 years, I have seen that come up. And you bring up another interesting point in that story. These bonds that we share with our dog, I mean, they're so profound and they're so deep. And I don't think that we would trade them. I know I wouldn't trade them for anything in the world.
Totally.
I mean, as long as you put me with dogs for the rest of my life, I'm more than good. Yeah. I'm in primo shape.
Totally.
But also too, like we've become so embedded with our dogs that we start to then paint this picture, right? Like I was saying before, of what, and maybe this is my opportunity to circle back to that, because I don't think I finished it earlier, but this assumption of what it is that is going on within them and where they're coming from and what their motives are and what their processes are. Yeah. And we as humans, there's so much projection, but it's like, can we use our own intuition and our abilities to tune in? And again, that's part of the listening, and really ask our higher self to communicate with our dog's higher self.
Yeah.
And then we get to understand in its most authentic way what is really present. And not chiming in with our, intellectualizing or, again, the assumptions, the expectations, the projections, right? And I think that's one of the most, not just potent ways of transforming our relationships with our dogs. Like, that would be the first step that I would wear, not what it's where I take people, is to examine this first. And it's a life changer, because again, when you start doing that with your dog, all of a sudden it starts like leaching out into every aspect of life. Right. And, people will say to me all the time, Sasha, look at your dogs. They love you so much. Oh my God, look at that. I said, they do? Wait a minute. Did my dogs tell you something that they haven't shared with me? I don't know if my dogs love me. Does that change the relationship if they don't? Is that okay?
Yeah.
Is that okay if they feel differently about me than I do about them?
Right.
Because they have a different makeup.
Yeah.
They have a different experience of what it is to be in relationships and in a hierarchy and in a familial pack dynamic.
Yeah.
Right? So I know, and I can feel confident that I show my golden expression, my heart coherent expression of love for them. And I'm also at peace and in full acceptance of the fact that they probably don't love me. Their experience is different than mine.
Yeah.
And that's not going to change the way that I show up for them. And I would call that unconditional love.
Yeah. Yeah.
But when I hear people talk about how much their dog loves them and how much they love their dog, I'm looking at something very different.
Yeah.
That is something. That is definitely something, but that ain't love.
Yeah.
That's not what I would call, the definition of love.
There's a lot of personification, and a lot of people have it. I mean, especially I feel like this generation, like I'm in the millennial generation, I believe, like there's a lot of this stuff about like parents' conditional love that I think we're learning to observe inside ourselves, and learning how, like, if you do this, I'll love you. If you do this, which is a form of love, I don't think it is love. It's still a separation.
Yes.
But, and I think that a lot of people have a similar thing with their dogs too, because they're still dealing with that. But at least the way I like to envision and, see the way the world is going through this, initiation process, that I hope on the other side we can realize that the duality that we've created is just part of the process of our own learning to coming back to the actual oneness of what love really is, which I truly think is something so beyond our own comprehension that we can't even name it.
Yes.
Can't even put it into words, really.
Yeah.
But we do our best. Well, and that makes me think about, too, like, when me and Sasha met, we were both, I forget how I had heard, or maybe we just naturally through conversation found out that we both love Anna Breitenbach. And she is just like, when I found her, I had this deep inner knowing awaken in me, where all of a sudden, all the things that as a child, my connection to nature and animals, and all the things that I thought were just like cute, random, weird things that I just all of a sudden made sense. It was like, oh, actually, those are skills that I've been developing, and I'm remembering a communication with nature that's a bi-directional pathway. And she so eloquently speaks about it and the indigenous wisdom of tracking animals and how that came
Yes.
about in her own awakening of actually being, in modern society, and then having this reawakening, I like to call, of, finding that inner knowing with nature and what she calls it, the field of interspecies communication. And wanted to share a little quote and then maybe speak about it. But she opens up her documentary by saying, "I believe that humanity is suffering from a great separation sickness, a real disconnect from nature. My sense is that by understanding animals more deeply, we can begin to heal ourselves." What's your takeaway on this?
Well,
beautifully said.
Yes, I mean, so beautifully said. And it's, it's why Anna and I, like, our work is so, we're just so on the same page. That's really the essence of it all. And you read that quote to me earlier, and I immediately just I was overcome with emotions. It's something that's so deep, and it's so real, and it's really everything that we've been talking about.
Truly.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, it just, well, and her ability to bring to my mind and understanding, similar to what you were just saying about, our perception of what animals think or whatever, even how we're higher level beings. Like, yes, we are the cream of creation as a human being because we have a lot of interfaces with different dimensions, and we have this like whole neocortex that is fascinating. And like, I do not at all like put that down. But on the other side of it, like, one of the things that I think she was talking about one time, I heard her in like some clip talking about ants or some type of bugs. She was saying how a lot of us think that we're like smarter than bugs, or that we're smarter than these like smaller level beings. But she was like, no. Actually, if you pay attention to them, they actually probably have more to teach us. And it's like that whole bidirectional thing. But it really goes to show you, it's like, yes, maybe they're not doing like calculus and like figuring out how to use like fossil fuels, but they're actually probably more in harmony with the reality of what truly is.
Right. Precisely. And so then it begs the question, that the conversation of what is intelligence? And what good has all of that done for us?
Yeah.
I mean, really, this is like the state that we're
Totally.
in. The societies and the civilized way in which animals conduct themselves. I mean, it is, speaking of eloquence and elegance and precision and consistency and what is fair and just and rhythmic, and oh my gosh, I mean, right, we really are the students. And ants and dogs and horses and cats and iguanas and hummingbirds, and they are the teachers. And again, it just really all keeps coming back to the listening. Can we be present to the butterfly and connect with them in a way that we can receive what it is that they bring to us.
Well, it really reminds me of that indigenous wisdom, that it's like each animal had a certain archetype of different abilities and essences that we wanted to learn how to embody more of. And we would even sometimes, use that to our ability to actually connect with the soul or the oversoul of that animal to then, find harmony. Like, even, I mean, one of the things that blew my mind about going back to Anna too is like, she speaks a lot about, the tracking abilities and actually their ability to tap into the animal's soul and communicate with it. And things like the tracks were just a little like sprinkle on top, because they were actually following their divine guidance to get to that animal. But it was like the animal had that reciprocity in mind, where even if it knew it was going to be part of the food chain of them, it actually, like, they talk a lot about how the animal gave its life
Mm,
to carry on itself into the human. And there is a lot of people don't want to believe that, and that's just like a myth and all of that stuff. But the more I come back to this reality that we're starting to wake up to, it makes a lot of sense. I mean, because I think I heard uh, someone talk about also, like, when a lion makes a kill, it leaves just enough behind for the hyenas, which also leave just enough behind for the vultures that leave enough behind for the rest of the animals. So they all know,
yes.
and even the animal that
Yes.
died, it's like, of course, death is a thing that we've like vilified, and it's scary, and like, I'm not saying like I don't want to die, but at the same time, I know that like my soul and whatever I've created in this subtle bodies of my actual body is going to be carried on. At
Mm-hmm.
least that's my belief. And so it's like, I don't know.
Absolutely.
Sometimes I meditate on that. I'm like, if someone came and killed me, like, would I be okay with it? Like, I mean, I'd have to be. I don't know. And I mean, it's not a funny thing, but it's just like, I guess that's my way of
Yeah.
releasing it. It's like, it's just,
Right.
I just laugh at I think part of my laughter comes a lot too from just like our ego is so involved that it thinks we are like gods, and that we can just like play God all the time, and it's just going to bite us in the ass if we don't wake up.
That's precisely it. I mean, again, without going down a rabbit hole, that like we were even talking about that
Yeah,
earlier, when we have this idea that we're, living in a world where, things are love and light and it's all, it's important to, right, not play God.
yeah,
And again, like I always say, like, just reflect and converse with the real gods,
yeah,
which are dogs.
yeah,
I always say, what's dog spelled backwards?
yeah,
Regardless of what you believe, what is dog spelled
yeah.
backwards? Like,
Gods, yeah,
you cannot deny that. Whatever
exactly,
that means to you.
absolutely,
Yeah. So it's just so funny, like this idea that, it's such a big thing,
yeah,
this like, I love you statement. And, just hearing people speak of their dogs, it's so fascinating. And I hear the same, almost like on repeat. Like I hear the same dialogue going on.
yeah,
And I mean, I have literally watched grown men cry when I introduce the idea. I mean, they literally start emoting like their
yeah.
tears because they can't fathom that their dog does not love them. And I think, it's important to note, because I'm sure for a lot of our listeners hearing that will, kind of
Stir them up a little bit. Yeah,
activate something within them that's like resistant, or I don't believe that, or I don't want to hear that. But I think anybody that really has a more expansive, more, very high conscious level of like understanding,
yeah,
they're going to think about it, they're going
yeah.
to, and I think it's something just to contemplate, to be contemplative about this. It's very
No,
freeing.
I'm actually really glad you brought it up, because I find that in the human world, the words "I love you" are so thrown around. And like, it goes back
So
to the same thing you're talking about, where it's like and I'm all for it. I'm not saying I'm not guilty of it sometimes, where I like really enjoy someone's presence and I tell them I love them. Um, but like, there is this sacredness to those words that has been completely lost. Kind of like the word God, it's like completely just thrown around. And so people, when you bring up the word God, it's like, oh, no, no, I can't hear it, and not that that
yes.
has the same reaction as love, but it is interesting. I've noticed in relationships, and, whether it be romantic or friendship, like the words "I love you" or like these things that people like hold as like a badge of honor.
Mm,
Um,
that's so interesting that you say that, because I had somebody leave me a voice note last night, and at the end of the voice note they said, I love you, mean it.
Interesting.
Yeah, it was interesting. And this is somebody that I really love
Yeah.
and respect and value. And the way that he said it, it was really interesting how those two things were
Next to
side
each
by
other.
side. Yeah, I love you, mean it.
Yeah. Hmm.
And so that just, that it shot up immediately when you said that
Yeah.
term really gets thrown around. Now, what I wanted to say is that what we do know is that dogs are collective, communal, pack animals, right? They rely on the collective power in numbers. They rely on the power of the pack for their success and survival. Guess what? So do humans. We are tribe animals. So we are both the collaborative, we work together to design and, generate and fuel the well-oiled machine that is what contributes to our survival. Like, let's just get down to what's really going on. Right. And, dogs not having that double frontal lobe, right? Like they are all about like, okay, like what matters to us is carrying on our lineage and utilizing each member of the pack, utilizing their strengths and what they bring to the table to create cohesiveness and success and survival within the pack. And you can't have one without the other. So like you can't be successful as a well-oiled machine, for lack of a better term. I like thinking about it like it's like you have all the components in place to be like running, strong and enduring and sustaining, right? It's like, but you can only survive if you have all of those things working together. And so that is what our dogs depend on us for.
Yeah.
That's where the loyalty kicks in.
Hmm.
And so I think that humans misconstrued what is hardwired into these animals based off of their very like primal needs, which is just to be successful in order to survive and carry on the lineage, carry on the bloodlines.
Yeah.
And that is where, it's just very bare bones for them.
Mm.
But in that in that space, in that energy, we're receiving that presence, that stability, that what we see as love, what feels like love to us, that's what we're gaining from them. And we don't even realize it. We're not even in the listening or even again, contemplate, what it is that's like, bringing us to these, like, what is it about these animals? I mean, you mentioned dog to a person. It's like, like everything, just like they could be in the worst dog. It's like, you, what dog, where, and you hear stories about this all the time. I mean, it's like, it's prevalent. It's all over.
Well, and I just find that there's so much to learn from them on so many levels, but it's like you're striking a chord in me now too about relationships and relating to others. And something that I'm constantly thinking about all the time with my own self is I have this primal body that I've become very aware of, and like, how do I feed it and nurture it, but also be aware that it can lead me in funny ways sometimes. But going back to that, like, there's a lot there. Got to work with it all the time. But
I just got like all these like images popping up. So good.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
But it's like, and when it comes to like partnership for me, if I could get a little more specific, it's like there's certain women in my life where that primal instinct is like really something that I think about dogs all the time. It's like, and we were kind of making a joke about it, but it's like they immediately go for what is the pheromonal like feeling, what's the feeling of this animal around me, all those things. And it's really like bare bones to the point because they want to bring on their lineage. And it's like,
Yes.
that's what I have to like recognize in myself a lot of the time when it comes to relationships. And I can like get guilty a little bit about it. Like, oh man, they're so cool and intellectual and I like so many things, but my body just keeps saying no. And I'm like,
Mm.
damn. And it's like a little frustrating to me, but it's also
Mm.
really powerful that I think a lot of women are starting to talk about it when they talk about when they feel safe enough to like actually open up to even sharing their body with another man or whatever they're sharing it with. But like when it comes, I mean, it's just being inclusive here. It's all the different flavors with love.
Once again, I'm gonna keep my mouth shut. That will take us somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it comes back to like, I feel like for men too, I've actually been starting this conversation with a lot of like men that are a little more conscious and open to speaking about this type of thought process, but realizing that there is this aspect of actually recognizing what our body is saying yes or no to. And like, I think dogs are some of the best teachers at that. It's like they know
Oh,
when something smells right and when something feels right and all those things. And they're like, they have no shame in that.
no shame.
And it's like, we have so much guilt and shame of like, oh, it's like, we just like got to keep perpetuating this like fake idea of our reality so that we can just like not be shamed and ostracized, you know, from society. But
Completely. And that is such a great segue into even something that we were touching on earlier, which is dogs are the greatest judge of not only characters, but of situations and environments. And if you just, I always watch, anytime I see my dogs smelling in such a way or moving their body in such a way or kind of, just responding to something or somebody in such a way, it's always this like, what is going on? Like they know something that it completely surpasses my understanding and comprehension by light years.
yeah,
It's something that, so I am just fully in the listening, and it's so fascinating how it can show up in human society as very socially unacceptable.
yeah,
So our dogs, are barking at something, or our dogs, happen to be walking down the street and are, reacting or avoiding or having some kind of, disturbed or disrupted response to a person, to another dog. And people always want to label it as a bad behavior.
yeah.
Oh, that dog is acting out.
Right.
Excuse me. No, that dog is responding to its environment.
Right.
And that, of course, then goes to a whole other, kind of segue of the way in which they're responding. Is it a grounded response because they have a trust and a belief in their humans as the embodied alpha leaders? Or has the dog taken on the full responsibility of having to protect the pack from danger, living in a world that they don't understand, having to deal with something or somebody that they understand to be a negative vibration?
Wow. That's powerful because that goes right into what I was going to ask about the boundaries and how can we learn from dogs about the way that they set boundaries and the way that they protect, because I feel like there's just such a tough part of our humanity right now with the boundaries.
Oh, people don't.
topic.
I mean, when you look at just people as a species, I mean, the lack of boundaries, the
Spatial awareness.
spatial
Oh my
spatial
God, don't even get me started.
awareness. Oh my word! I mean, look, I'm all. Call me old fashioned. Like, I mean, I value etiquette.
Yeah.
There is a way to be, and etiquette is not some kind of weird, old, really, it's not
Yeah.
old fashioned. Like it's a
It's a value.
it's a value. It's being
Yeah.
conscientious.
Yeah.
And, just like, for instance, a boundary, when we speak of like interpersonal, spatial boundaries, like when you're walking down the street, like how would you feel if a stranger approached you and started sticking their hands in your face?
Yeah. Yeah.
How would you feel if you were walking a child down the street or pushing a baby in a stroller and some stranger came out of nowhere and didn't, even if they asked you if they could touch the child, you would say, excuse me?
Yeah.
Like, no, like what? That's very, freaky and really, like alarming that you're
Yeah.
even having an intention of touching my child.
Yeah.
I mean, the child's beautiful. The child's cute. The child's adorable.
Yeah.
Does that give the human permission, automatic permission to invade the personal space of that child? No, I mean, people would go to jail for that.
Yeah.
So why has it become normalized and acceptable for humans to do that to dogs?
It's a great question.
It's a very good question.
Yeah.
And it's one that I want to really blast into the world. I want everybody to really think about, you know, and interesting, like, you know, this was the first time that you got to interact with my dogs.
Right.
Right. And have you directly engaged with them yet?
No.
No. And why is that? Because you're respecting their boundaries.
Right.
Because you are a stranger. They didn't invite you over. I did.
Yeah.
And I'm the embodied alpha female. So it's my responsibility to directly engage and be in presence with you. And they get to be just the beneficiaries of your aligned, centered, non-pressure, non-preferential energy.
Yeah. That's powerful. Imagine if we lived in a society where that was actually the case all the time. It would be really beautiful.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Where we got to honor and speak, because you're speaking my dog's language right now.
Yeah.
You know, just because you're not directly engaging with them, talking to them, touching them, making eye contact with them, involving yourself in their experience, because somehow it is a gratification within you. You get to accomplish something in the moment.
Right.
That's fully centered around your small ego.
Right. Yeah.
Right? Like, and of course, as we, you know, spend our time and you get to be in presence with them, then you'll get to engage with them directly on your terms when the timing is right.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And that's beautiful, because that once again makes me think of relationships and like humans and like romantic relationships. Like, imagine if that was the case all the time. Like, I mean, it'd be so much healthier. It's like we're always like looking for that. That it goes right back to what we started with. It's just people are like trying to fill this insatiable hole inside themselves because they think it's outside themselves, but it's actually within. And it really, yeah.
We would have a lot less dysfunctional partnerships. We would have a lot less divorces, right? We would have a lot less anger and resentment and guilt and blame and shame and judgment and, you know, this not meeting expectations. And I mean, it really would, I mean, you said it so beautifully. I mean, it really is about this knowing that we can heal ourselves and we really have that. It's all within us.
Yeah.
And it's not something that we can, you know, seek out in the external world to fill this void. And what we're talking about with, you know, human to canine relations is exactly applicable to humans.
Yeah.
Like across the board, to a T.
Yeah. Well, and it's like, I guess something that comes up for me too about all the things that we've talked about is, do you feel that if we come into harmony with ourselves, that our dogs will be generally in a better state of mind and presence?
It's a 1000% guarantee.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because it's like people, I think, are always designing their whole life around trying to, I guess it almost goes back to that imbalance thing you're talking about. It's like they kind of become the alpha, so then they're the ones calling the shots in a certain way, where then like, whole life and our purpose is like based on like this animal, but really it's just a projection of us not fulfilling our inner need.
Exactly. Precisely. And, I talk a lot about the mastery of the embodied alpha leader.
Yeah, please speak about more.
The mastery is not in perfection or a destination or, really a goal, right? It's when we have these goals, I find that we set ourselves up for failure because we have a time and a place and an agenda of this goal, right? And I see that in humans. I see it in people's oh, my dog is, a year old. They should be this.
Yeah.
Or I'm 30 years old. I should be married with a kid.
Yeah.
Or I'm this age. I should have made $1 million. Or, right. So all of this that, we put these, we basically set ourselves up to fail. And the mastery of the embodiment of the true essence of the alpha leader is every day showing up and recommitting and being so present to the present moment.
Yeah.
And that is mastery. It's when you are able to be so keenly aware that you're able to make the distinction of when you start to veer down a path that is not taking you to your dream affirmative vision, right?
Yeah.
That's not in alignment with your heart and your soul, and being able to shift course in that moment. It's like you do not miss a beat.
Yeah.
And that is the true essence. That is the mastery of the embodied alpha leadership.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like the true heart-brain coherence.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Right. And, we have this perfect, this complex of this, if we don't do it like this, and if it doesn't happen like that, I mean, it's just like all this monkey mind. We drive ourselves absolutely mad.
Yeah.
And, and it's not, it has nothing to do, people have this idea with me of like, oh, Sasha, your dogs are perfect. Like they don't ever, it's like, what is, I mean, or I'm somehow this perfect, it's what I will say is what I'm pretty damn right on with is my ability to move and shift and change when I can sense and feel that I'm showing up in a way that has a lot more to do with my wounding than my whole self.
Yeah.
And my connection to the divine, to source, to my guides, to my spiritual.
Yeah, it's like the awareness and presence of what is and truly being a vessel of that rather than trying to.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, there's been so much learning for me of just like surrendering to it and thinking like that I got to do it. I find that simultaneously I'm like projecting, oh my gosh, I got to get all these things done and this is what's going to bring me to the next level and it's going to be great. But simultaneously it's already happening and it already has happened. And there's a reality that's continuing that. So I kind of find myself in these funny loops that I'm getting better and better at releasing that kind of monkey mind of trying to figure things out. But it's like, I really, sometimes when I truly tap in, I'll come back to something that I'm like giving myself a hard time, like, oh, I didn't finish my book and all that stuff. And I should have finished it. And now it's been months. But I go back and I pick it up and I'm like, this is exactly the right moment that I'm supposed to pick this back up. And I already did the work that I was supposed to do at that moment. So why am I freaking out?
That's magic.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the magic when we can trust in that, because we have no control is an illusion.
It's such an illusion.
And the structure that we have put ourselves into, right? I mean, it is enough to make yourself crazy.
Yeah.
I
mean, I see sometimes it's like I don't actually see a computer screen, but in my head, I'm like, it's like 3,000 options of the next thing I could do. And I'm like, that's when I know I just need to sit in complete stillness and actually do none of it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, getting down to it, I wanted to actually ask you, what are some practical steps that people can take to better connect with their animals in general? Because I feel like we've gotten so deep and there's so much juiciness in what we've shared. But yeah, like for people that are wanting to know, like, where do I start, or what's the next thing I should do, or how should I start becoming aware, other than working with you directly, of course. But
yeah. And there's lots of options for that really meet everybody's needs and where they're at. So, my book, Peaceful Dog Mastery, is a wonderful, kind of stepping stone into my methodology, my philosophy, my approach. And it, I think it really gives a nice overview and a paradigm. It illustrates the paradigm shift that we must enter into.
yeah.
And it's not a how-to. It's very much so just an introduction.
Yeah.
And then, once we get into my master class, which is the Embodied Alpha master class, that's more of, dipping your toe into the water a little bit deeper, and gives more of the practical application, and the how to, and the when, and the why, and the where.
Yeah.
It's also self-guided, and so it's not me, kind of guiding you through the process and curating an experience that's custom tailored to each individual client. That becomes available the next level up, which, is my one-on-one intimate educational container. So,
awesome.
And then, the offerings go up from there, but always on my website, caninestateofmind.com. Our listeners can learn all about, what, like, this speaks to me, this resonates with my heart. And then, like, well, I get asked this all the time. What program is right for me? I said, you already know.
Yeah.
You know.
Yep.
Just listen.
Yeah.
I think the title of our podcast should be Listen.
Yeah. 100%. Because it's like truly the listening is where it all begins and ends. It's like truly, because I find that the through line throughout my like budding success in the music world and all these different areas has just been listening and knowing when to pivot and being okay that I'm like feeling a message that I realize is going to be really uncomfortable to transition into, but I'm just like, well, and then like it always comes back around and I'm like, well, damn, okay, this is even better than I could have ever imagined. And I think that's really like a powerful message that I hope people can start to learn to listen to what they're actually being called to. And I don't know if you have any tips on that, but something that comes to my mind a lot of the time when I'm consulting people is just thinking about the things that you were fascinated with as a child and what you really gravitated towards, and not getting wrapped up in why or like judging it, because I found that everything I'm now doing, I studied as a child. Which is like, I always thought was just like a random thing that I liked, or I just love that movie for some random reason, but no, it's not random.
You're very rare. I mean, that's rare. It in this day. No, and it's sad that that it's not prevalent for people. And I feel like that's why so many people are so deeply unhappy.
Yeah.
It's because they're not right? They're not following that childlike, when you're pure and innocent and connected in such a deep way. You're not tainted, you're just following your heart.
Yeah.
And through all of our programming and traumas and, oh my God, I mean, we're just, it just takes us farther and farther off the course. And so I mean, that's really so beautiful that you've been able to, and the same with me,
Yeah.
you know, that we, not just
Yeah.
you, that we both have that. You know, as soon as you said that, I remember I could start crying actually, just even thinking about it. But like when I was like 5 years old, I would, I grew up in downtown Chicago, and we had a country home, out, you know, way outside of Chicago. And that's when I was introduced to horses and connecting with horses. And I remember I had this horse, Willie, that, nobody else could touch this horse. Nobody could ride him except me.
Wow.
He had obviously a lot of trauma around humans, and he was extremely head shy, very fearful of humans, which how can you blame him? But anyway, so him and I had a very, very deep and special connection. And I remember I would we'd drive out of the city on Friday night and go to our country home. And I would stand on the fence of the pasture of where Willie and his buddies were, pitch black. And I would stand on the fence and I would make this calling, this noise. And all of a sudden, and it was way the hell out. And all of a sudden you hear this, you can hear the thundering of him running with his buddies from all the way far, and they would come and meet me at the fence. And my dad would just say, that is the most beautiful thing. And my dad was, you know, very connected to horses and to animals. But, you know, that to me, obviously, I just thinking about it, you know, it brings such a tremendous, you know, just evokes so much emotion. Just the mere thought of it, because it's what triggers the feeling. And that to me in my heart was like, it's still so present today in my work. And, I'm constantly left touched, moved, and inspired by what I do. And it's like, anytime I'm like, oh God, this is so difficult. Oh my God, I have so much work to do to shift and up level and transform humanity, not just for them, but most importantly for the animals, so that our animals can live the lives that they deserve. I always go back to that.
That's so powerful. I love that.
You know, it's like exactly what you're saying.
Well, yeah, it's like our soul knows before it even comes into this physical incarnation. It's just like, it's literally just like waking up to that, because it's just, it just continues to blow my mind how many times I come back to these pivotal memories as a child that I so easily thought they were like random, just like cute thoughts, you know, and then realizing, wow, this is really the breadcrumbs I left for myself so that I could actually wake up. Like, it was literally so deeply ordained in that way.
Totally. Yes.
Yeah, I feel like we've touched so many good points. And
and maybe a couple, I could give a couple. Yeah. You know, I never give tips, right?
The tips and tricks.
And that's usually where it goes in tandem, tips and tricks.
Yeah.
This is not about trickery.
Yeah.
Right? And these animals are definitely not. And I say this and I go, ugh, because it's like, they're not circus monkeys. And then I go, well, but circus monkeys shouldn't exist either.
Yeah. Totally.
This is exactly what we're talking about. The abuse and the abolish, you know, the way that we diminish these animals. It's like, I mean, that's a whole other thing we really didn't even get into, but we could have many.
Yeah, we're going to do a series for sure.
Yeah, we're going to do a series. Absolutely. But, you know, I think a lot of it too is just exercising everything that we've been talking about today. Like, what is it that, you know, can you meditate with your dog? Can you take the time to, throughout your day, do inventory and evaluate how much of your day is spent touching your dog, talking to your dog, involving your dog. It's like our poor dogs never get a break.
Yeah.
And I see the outcome of that constant barrage of humanness that we subject them to. And it's so striking that when I ask my clients to stop and literally refrain from talking to their dog, touching their dog, making eye contact with their dog, it's like, don't ask anything of your dog for a day, a week, 2 weeks.
It's like a fast.
On a lot of levels.
Yeah.
Do you know what happens? I have seen, again, grown men sob because I asked them to do this.
Wow.
And you know what feedback I get?
What?
My dog has never been happier.
Wow.
I thought I knew what a happy dog was. I had no idea.
Wow.
Now I know.
Hmm.
Now I see what a calm, restored, peaceful, content, trusting dog looks like. And it's because I'm letting them be.
Yeah.
Just be. And then what's funny is the ones that were real resistant. I can't do that. That's going to be so hard. Oh my God. I can't even think about what? I can't talk to my dog? What? So when it's time to reintroduce the idea of reincorporating direct engagement, I say, so are you ready? I don't think I'm ready for that, right? The ones that protested the most and had the most resistance are like, things are going so well. I'm afraid to rock the boat.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, but our dogs love us. Did you know
Right.
that?
Yeah. They love us. So it's all good.
So that's a practical, give your dog a break.
Yeah. I love that.
Try it on. See what happens.
Yeah. Yeah.
See what happens. And even more, take it a step further and notate, journal your experience about what observations you've made as the conscious observer. So by doing that, people have this connotation of, I'm ignoring my dog. No, you're still communicating volumes of information.
Yeah.
You are still connected. You're connected deeper than you ever have been.
Yeah.
Just by shutting your mouth.
Yeah.
Just by leaving your dog alone and letting them enjoy their lives. Somebody said to me the other day, if my dog is sleeping, I hear this all the time, is it okay if I go and start touching him? Well, I think we can come to the answer to that question very quickly.
Yeah.
When you're sleeping, do you like people coming and disrupting you?
Yeah, right.
Oh, well, no. Well, there's the answer to your question.
Right. So simple.
It's like, it's not all about you. Newsflash.
Yeah, newsflash.
Right? Newsflash. It's not all about your needs and selfish desires being met, but you also have to respect and return the favor.
Yeah.
But what is that old saying, do unto others as you would want them to do unto you?
Yeah. Totally.
I mean, it's pretty common sense, but we've lost that language. We've become disconnected from that. And, and like you said earlier, it's very much in correlation to, this wounding and this void, right? That we're really so desperate to fill. And our dogs just shouldn't have to fill it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just like they become the brunt of so much of our pain, when really we can just start to create that harmonic relationship that has so many different levels of different effects on so many different planes of nature and existence that we don't even realize. And it's like we actually
like you said earlier, that ripple effect that happens in the rest of our lives when we're creating that relationship with our dog. So it's just next level.
It's next level. It reverberates and it heals the vibration of all relations, all the planet, mother. I mean, it literally. I mean, I get the chills even saying it because it's very powerful.
Yeah. No, it's been such a breeze and such a beautiful time with you, and I'm just so thankful to have you on this podcast finally. And yeah, we're definitely gonna have to do more because it's just there's so many deep things that I think a lot of people can gain from this. And really, I think it's like, there's no coincidence that like most people are attracted to watching animal videos. It's like they're trying to show us something, and we're just still thinking it's like something outward.
Yeah, and you said the word earlier, and it's such an important word, and it's remembering.
Mm-hmm.
The remembrance, right? They're hitting a chord in us. All those people that were attacking me on my social media post. God bless them.
God bless
they don't even realize that I know that I've struck something deep within them that's about remembering.
Yeah.
Right? Clearly they have a connection to dogs.
Yeah.
Dogs are, right?
Yeah.
They have that.
Absolutely.
They have that, right? But their wounding and their forgetfulness has led them astray.
Yeah.
And led them to be and do certain things and ways of being that are of the darkness, of the wounding.
Yeah.
But it has struck something in them that they remember. And they want to resist it and they want to shut it down and make it wrong.
Yeah.
But they keep coming back.
Yeah.
They keep revisiting that post.
Totally. Yeah. Aho.
Aho.
Amen to that. Well, yeah. And so maybe just share your website one more time just so if people want to find you.
Yeah, website and Instagram are the same.
Yeah.
Canine spelled out, CANINE, stateofmind.com.
Love that. Awesome. And your Instagram handle is the same, right?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
And yeah, thank you so much for being here. And yeah, thank you for tuning in and look forward to hearing your feedback. And thanks for a beautiful ride.
Yeah, I really look forward to having some deeper, more extensive conversations with those that listen to our conversation.
Yes.
Thanks again for tuning in to the Fallen Frequency podcast. I love sharing these guests, and it helps if you go and leave a review if you love this podcast as much as I did. And at the very least, please share it with your friends and your family and anyone that might benefit from living in their freedom of frequency, life, and holistic living. I will talk to you soon. Look forward to the next one.